Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being with us. I'm Senator Bob Menendez, and I'm pleased to be here with a tremendous cast of incredible women who have helped through their advocacy promote a law, the Mothers Act, that is now the law of the land, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And I welcome all of the mothers who are on stage with us and all the mothers in the audience. And I hope you all had a great Mother's Day yesterday in celebration of a great, great, important institution. We're here to celebrate the Mothers Act law, which is now the law of the land. We have a series of people with us who are advocates of that. Mary Jo Cody, our former First Lady, who is a tireless advocate here in New Jersey, helped pass New Jersey's landmark law. Susan Stone, the chairperson of the President's Postpartum Advisory Council at PSI, who has been a powerful voice in this effort. Sylvia La Salandra, author of A Daughter's Touch, who has moved us with her compelling story, opened her eyes to help others open their eyes to this challenge. And to the many mothers who are on stage today who know all too well suffering this disorder, how suffering this disorder can inflict upon an individual. So I think they all have our deepest respects and thanks. And we're also joined by a woman who is no stranger to New Jersey or to anyone in America. She's one of our finest actors, a star of stage, screen, and television, who, by the way, can now be seen in Fury Vengeance, her new environmentally friendly slapstick adventure with Brendan Fraser. I haven't seen it yet, Brooke, but I figured I'd put in a plug for the movie. So seriously, Brooke Shields is a celebrity familiar to all of us, but she is no different than any mother on this stage, as is evidenced by the inspiring story she told in her book, Down Came the Rain, offering hope to women everywhere suffering from this disorder. So we want to thank her as well for taking time out of her. An incredible, she's had a whirlwind schedule, and she's here with us today. So we're here today to celebrate the Melanie Blocker Stokes Mothers Act, now the law of the land. It's named after a healthy young woman, Melanie Blocker Stokes, who did not seem to know how to respond to her dream of motherhood when it became a reality. Melanie had a daughter, Summer. She was only 8 months old, and Melanie's depression became very severe. She stopped eating and drinking. She could no longer swallow. She became paranoid, and she looked for ways to end her life. She was hospitalized 3 times in 7 weeks, was treated for depression and anxiety. But in the end, she took her own life, a victim of postpartum depression. The Mothers Act that all of us have fought for, and my colleague in the House of Representatives, Bobby Rush of Chicago, who represented and made a commitment to Melanie's mother to help make this law a passage, is in part in memory of Melanie Stokes and mothers like her. Listening to all of these mothers on stage here in New Jersey, it became very clear to me that something had to be done at a national level. We needed to be able to deal with a tragic disorder on multiple fronts, through education, through increased support services and research, so we get the heart of why postpartum depression actually takes place, so that new moms suffering from postpartum depression would feel supported and safe rather than scared and alone. The Mothers Act provides that support. It will help new mothers feel safe, help them get through it, help to get the research to at the core of it. So today we celebrate the Mothers Act, but it's only the beginning of a long overdue national response to a debilitating and potentially dangerous disorder. But it's a good beginning, part of the health insurance reform that Congress passed and the President signed. It will go a long way to provide the support to 10 to 20% of all new mothers in our country who suffer its symptoms, With a national public awareness campaign that is included in the law, the Mothers Act will shine a needed light on the seriousness and devastation of postpartum depression, so new mothers and the general public, our families, because this is ultimately, yes, about our mothers, but it's also about our families, the husbands and sons and daughters and brothers and sisters who are part of this, who will better understand the nature of the disorder and help to create an opportunity so that a mother can be embraced and get the services that she needs. Now, some people still think postpartum depression is what is traditionally being called the baby blues, and that is not the case. This law will help dispel that notion and raise awareness both for new mothers and the general public. It will help educate new moms, their families, and every American about this health challenge and how it can alter a woman's life and affect the lives of those who love her. It will open avenues of new research into the causes, diagnosis, and treatments of postpartum depression that affect as many as 800,000 new mothers each year and between 11,000 and 16,000 mothers here in our home state of New Jersey. But we also need to try to bring this down to its most local level, to reach out to all those who need help no matter who they are. That means providing sufficient support in local communities so that new mothers suffering from this disorder will have a place to go where they can get the help they need. The Mothers Act also has a local component that I hope we will expand in the future. It gives grants to community organizations, hospitals, state and local governments to put into place effective support services, and hopefully over time we will see such support services spring up in every city and community across America. Starting this year, I am working on the appropriations process to launch the first tranche of these community services. I believe we'll be successful at that, as we have been successful in passing this law. So on the day after Mother's Day, I can't think of a better opportunity to celebrate and to show that when, in fact, citizens seek to get involved, they can change the course of events. These mothers all were part of helping to change the course of events for the better. And finally, another thing to celebrate is that the new health insurance law, which includes the Mothers Act, now requires all new insurance plans to cover comprehensive women's preventative care and screenings. That's the law of the land, and it is a major victory for all women across the country, and it's one of the reasons that I'm proud to have supported it. So now let me introduce a woman who truly needs no introduction. She has graced the covers of fashion magazines. She was the youngest model ever to be on the cover of Vogue. Who could forget her in Suddenly Susan, which earned her a People's Choice Award. She has made us laugh, she's made us cry, she made us stop and notice, and she has always done it with the same grace and dignity that she brought to this effort to help those who suffered what she suffered, to reach out and help. And that makes her, in my mind, more than a model, more than an actor, but a national leader who is serving a public interest in making America aware of the suffering and sadness of postpartum depression. Ladies and gentlemen, Brooke Shields.
Wow, well, that was some introduction. Thank you. When in listening to a resume, it's so interesting because the most important part of that resume for me is mom. That's the part of it that makes me the proudest. It's nice to stand here and see so many babies. These babies are why we're here. The moms are why we're here. The families are why we're here. I never thought I would be standing here. I never thought I would have postpartum depression. When I had my baby, my first beautiful little baby girl, I thought I had made a huge mistake. I thought I had to find a way to give her to somebody and myself disappear because I was in such a sad, sorry, scared, devastated state and felt beyond guilty for not being elated that I was getting this beautiful gift. I was told it was the baby blues. and then I would get over it. And as it progressed, I started having very controlling suicidal thoughts and visions of horrible things happening to my baby, and wondering how I could just spare everybody and myself just cease to exist. I was guilty, I was scared, no one seemed to understand around me. We didn't have the tools, we didn't have the education, and it was the worst time of my entire life. And here was the gift that I had been waiting for years and had gone through so much trouble to get. There's so much shame surrounding postpartum, and there's so much guilt, and we're sort of told that this is supposed to be the happiest time of your life, and therefore you are somehow at fault. And I've seen so many women and so many families suffer in silence, and this is the best Mother's Day gift, to have this act, because these tireless individuals who have allowed women and their families and the children to not feel ashamed, to have access to a beautiful life and availability and of all that it has to offer, and to not waste any time not enjoying our families. So I really was just a conduit. You know, I had this, I happened to be a famous person, and somehow that there was a value to that. And I often wonder what the value is to being well-known or famous, because it's maybe you get a good table at a restaurant. I don't know. But really, there's very little value to it if you really think about it, except for being able to simply be a voice, and to be able to stand behind the people that really have done this work tirelessly over the years. We testified in Washington, and it seemed like we had a long road ahead of us, and it does feel long overdue, but still it has been done, and it is a glorious gift for all of us. I don't think people understand how devastating it is to all the family. Not just the mothers suffer, the families suffer, the kids suffer. And if there is one moment of your time, it's hard enough having children, but to be debilitated by postpartum and to not have the support that's out there is a tragedy. And now, thank God, I believe that we are on the path to a healthier, happier way of helping women, helping educate women, lifting the shame, allowing the research and the pre-screening. You know, when you have a child, you go to the hospital more often than you ever do following the birth of your child, and it's only for the child. And the mothers are never really considered. They say, oh, you're tired, it's the baby blues, you'll get over it. Of course you had a lot went on in your body, you know, of course you'd be tired. But this is the mother's turn and the mother's time to be able to feel the freedom to seek the help that is there for them. And I also say it's our responsibility to be honest. When there is screening, when a doctor says, how do you feel? Don't diminish it. If it's anything more uncomfortable than don't even listen to your instincts, which is terrible to say to a mother because you have to listen to your instincts, but don't be afraid to be honest about it, and don't try to soldier through it, because now there is help that is necessary, and we can help women enjoy their lives and families enjoy the beauty of having little people like this. So I'm going to stop talking and say thank you so much to everybody here on this stage who has shared their suffering and who have really made this law possible. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Brooke, and for sharing your story and for being an advocate and helping us make this a law. Now, I think all of us feel guilty that all these mothers are standing here. So I know I stood up too, but we want to invite you to have a seat. Thank you so much for joining us. Please give all of these ladies a round of applause. Before I introduce our next speaker, let me recognize her husband. In this case, he gets recognized because of her. Normally, he gets recognized on his own, and that is our former governor, Dick Cody. Dick, thank you for being with us today. As I've said many times, Mary Jo Cody will always be the First Lady of New Jersey to all of us, not only for who she is as an advocate and a tireless educator for those who have suffered postpartum depression, mental illness, breast cancer, but as a woman of pride, dignity, and honor. Through her leadership, New Jersey became the first state in the nation to pass a law on postpartum depression and provide screening for every mother. She knows the importance of having someone there in times of trouble, and she has been there for countless New Jerseyans. Through her life and her work, she represents the best of who we are and what we stand for as a community. And I think all of us are individuals who owe her a debt of gratitude, being willing to come forth and tell her story and to help others understand that this is just a health challenge, nothing else, and not have fear and to have the ability to come forward and to seek help has been a redeeming gift for quite a period of time for a lot of women. My pleasure to introduce Mary Jo Cody.
Thank you. I have to follow Brooke Shields. She's so beautiful. But now to a more serious subject. During the time I was institutionalized for depression after the birth of my first son, I went to the medicine chest in my room, in my hospital room, to overdose on my medication. After 3 months of living with postpartum depression, I simply couldn't stand it anymore. When my meds weren't there, when I discovered they weren't there, it suddenly came to me. The psychiatrists knew that postpartum depression existed. They knew it could torture you with thoughts about harming your precious baby. They knew in its worst form it could make you a threat to yourself and your child. In my desperation, I thought, when are they going to warn us, the women? It's not fair that we, the potential victims, don't know. Standing empty-handed at that medicine chest, I recognized for the first time there ought to be a law, a national law, to make sure women and their families across the country are fully aware of this very possible, devastating side effect of pregnancy. As bad as I felt, I believe it would only be a matter of time, because it was too important not to be a law. It never crossed my mind that I would ultimately become one of the drivers of such an initiative. It was only later, after my second bout with postpartum depression, that I vowed to do whatever I could to make sure no other woman had to endure what I had been through, and began my advocacy. I had no idea that my husband would become governor of New Jersey 20 years later, giving us the opportunity to launch the groundbreaking Speak Up When You're Down campaign and state postpartum depression legislation that became the foundation of the Melanie Blocker Stokes Mothers Act. I had no idea that it would take 25 years to see my epiphany become reality, but I always believed things happen for a reason. And I never gave up hope that one day there would be a law. Senator Bob Menendez never gave up hope either. He, along with Representative Bobby Rush of Illinois, persevered until the act became law as part of the new health care reform bill. I thank him and Bobby Rush from the bottom of my heart. They are my heroes. I want to thank them on behalf of all mothers in America, and I want to thank all of the ACT supporters in Congress, in healthcare professions, in the blogs and chat rooms, and the various organizations across the country, as well as in this room, for their unwavering commitment to seeing this through. And most of all, I want to thank my husband, Richie, for speaking up for all of us who have been down. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Jo, for your leadership. Susan Stone has been with us all along the way, right from the beginning. She is one of the nation's most influential advocates for helping mothers with postpartum depression. She has come to Washington on so many occasions that we have asked her, as we were trying to educate our colleagues many who are men and simply didn't understand. And so she was just incredibly helpful, whether to brief the press, to testify, to educate members who always walked away nodding their heads after they met her and listened to her. She is an advocate's advocate, someone who can make you see a bit of light in the darkness that can lead you through, and she's been a real leader on this issue. Ladies and gentlemen, Susan Dowd Stone. Please.
Thank you, Senator Menendez, Governor and Mary Jo Cody, Sylvia La Salandra, and Brooke Shields. You didn't have to lend your celebrity to walk alongside of the 15 to 20% of American mothers who will have a diagnosable perinatal mood disorder this year, but you did consistently. So I thank you for that. I wish that I had known. This is the phrase that I hear most frequently from mothers in my practice, in this room, from the women who are standing behind me. I wish that I had known. I wish that someone had told me about this illness. Any new or expectant mother can tell you all about the best car seat, nutritional issues, what your husband needs to do to help you, how partners can respond. They can give you facts and details, but when it came to perinatal mood disorders, they have been let out of the dark. They have not been included in those conversations. And now, because of Senator Menendez and Bobby Rush, that will never happen again in this country. I wish that I had known. Mothers are strong beings who literally fight to the death for their infants' lives. Forewarned is forearmed. And the outrage that this information has been denied for so long is understandable. Through the passage of this legislation, our country finally sets aside the motherhood myth to acknowledge the full spectrum of maternal experience as the reality. Finally, the country whose infant mortality rate is among the highest in the civilized world has examined its soul and readied itself to do battle with the #1 complication of pregnancy, perinatal mood disorders. Just as no two women will ever have the exact same set of symptoms, so no two women will ever have the exact same combination for the treatment to bring them to wellness. For some mothers, social support, practical services, and educational outreach will go a long way to facilitate wellness. For others, improved sleep, nutrition, therapy, and medication will conquer symptoms and be returned to health. The more we know about how, why, and when these disorders occur, the more responsive our offered remedies will be. This legislation will study all of the critical components in its quest to fund effective treatment. And I do have to say one thing. Not once over the last 6 years of advocating for this legislation has any pharmaceutical representative ever approached me to insert a dark agenda, to subsidize my advocacy, to advertise on my website, or in any way influence the very noble purpose of this legislation. We should never deny a single woman the remedy that she needs to become well, whatever that combination is. Yet this bill does not subsidize medication. It subsidizes a whole wide spectrum, from concrete services to social support to research and educational outreach. So the narrow concept that some groups, thankfully the minority, had no luck in swaying America's legislators, in frightening America's women, or causing anyone to abandon the quest for fulfillment and adoption of this legislation. At this point, we have one stake in the ground, but now it's time to get the bill funded. This celebration is wonderful, but we need the funding. So I ask all of you to continue to walk alongside Senator Menendez, Brooke Shields, Mary Jo Cody, Richard Cody, Sylvia La Salandra, and every mother in this room until the bill is funded and until there are services in every community across this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan. And finally, because she has her own indelible brand of how she does things, we kept Sylvia to close this act for us. Sylvia La Salandra, she is a passionate advocate with a compelling story that she skillfully and emotionally captured in her book, A Daughter's Touch. She is a member and past chair of the Postpartum Support International President's Advisory Council. She's helped raise national awareness through her own story on the blogosphere, as well as working directly with agencies and organizations. She's been a compelling voice, helping to raise awareness wherever she goes among family members whose loved ones may be experienced what she experienced. And most importantly, Sylvia is the mother of Melina, who inspires her every day to keep spreading the message of hope. She is truly a Jersey gal, and we are honored to have her with us today, Sylvia La Salandra.
This is the first time that the podium is from my height. Here are the two Jersey girls right here. I couldn't start off without thanking everyone for attending and thanking some very special and dedicated people in this room. I am truly honored and privileged to be standing alongside of you, Brooke, today, although you're 3 feet taller than I am. I think you're one of the most beautiful, courageous, incredible woman I have ever met. I know your long and emotional, draining journey, and to share your personal struggle with PPD in an industry that is so judgmental and unforgiving, where other women in your industry were too afraid to speak up, and they've done it in the back rooms. You stood up tall and said, you know what? I'm going to stand here and help all the other women in America. It's because of your valor and your honesty and your commitment that we're here today, and I thank you, Brooke Shields. Mary Jo, without you and Richie, none of us would be standing here today. 23 years of dedication and heartache that she suffered with 2 children. It's because of you that we are here. You've laid the foundation. Thank you, Mary Jo. Susan Dowd Stone, my mentor and my friend. Susan has given me the wisdom and the courage to speak up about my battle with postpartum depression. Without fear, without shame, you always encouraged me. There are no words that can ever express the amount of love, respect, and admiration I have for our friendship. Thank you, Susan. At times, I never thought we would be standing here celebrating this day. In fact, there were days I thought of throwing the towel and just walking away. It was just too hard for me to relive those dark moments over and over again. I sometimes wondered if anyone was truly listening. However, my big senator, Senator Menendez, you listened with your heart, with your soul, and you never quit in making the Mothers Act law. Thank you. Because of the passage of the Melanie Blocker-Stokes Mothers Act, women will no longer feel ashamed, alone, and afraid to ask for help when they're suffering extreme sadness after the birth of their child. 10 years ago, I almost did the unthinkable. I suffered from an illness that physically could not be seen. I didn't have a fever, I didn't have any swelling, I didn't have any bruising. There were no open wounds, at least not the one that anyone can see with the human eye. There was a big gash in my heart. Although the bleeding has stopped, the scar will forever be embedded in my heart. I lost the first 9 months of my daughter's life. There are no memories. There are no photos that I ever take. If it wasn't for my brother John, I wouldn't have any of those photos. If you think that after 10 years of suffering with PPD, it doesn't affect me anymore, think again. There's not an hour that goes by that I don't think about postpartum depression. I am reminded every time I look into my daughter's beautiful eyes. I cry for the 300,000 women who are suffering from this very debilitating and very real illness as I speak. But most of all, I cry for the women and children who lost their lives because they were too afraid, too ashamed to ask for help. It's because of you that I never quit. I know you are all here today. I feel you. I thank you. And please know that you are not forgotten. Today, we celebrate the passage of a bill that will help save many, many women and families from this desperation that postpartum depression brings. It's amazing that beautiful things in life come in twos and threes, and dozens and hundreds. There are plenty of stars in the sky, plenty of rainbows, brothers, sisters, aunts and uncles and cousins, but only one mother. A mother is the most beautiful and sacred gift from God. All the reassurance a child ever needs is written on a mother's face. The Mothers Act will make sure that every mother in the U.S. suffering with PPD will no longer be ignored and receive the help that she truly deserves and needs. Michael, I am so blessed that you married me and grateful to be your wife. You're the answer to my prayer, and I think God knew that many years ago that I needed someone exactly like you. Thank you for your undying love and support. Finally, my dearest Melina, who should be taking her New Jersey Ask test, but I think I can get, I think Brooke will write me a letter and Senator Menendez. My dearest Melina, I know it was a rocky start, but I always want you to know that it was with my greatest joy that I was chosen as your mommy, your guardian, your protector, and your nurturer. I will always strive to fulfill these roles with honor and trust. You are the true meaning of my life, Melina. You are the dream with all its hope and promise. I am so sorry. Thank you for being my daughter, and I love you, Melina La Salandra Fradella, and thank you all.
Thank you, Sylvia, so much. Again, you've shared the story many times. And let me, before I open for questions, let me ask you to join me in once again thanking 4 incredible women whose advocacy made all the difference in the world in making this a law. Ladies and gentlemen. And I rarely do this, but there are always people behind the scenes who don't get recognition. I have an incredible member of my staff in Washington who is my health specialist, and she, when we went through this for years, we had opposition from some colleagues who just didn't get it, and she was persistent and looking for every different avenue that we could legislatively pursue until we finally came upon this one. And so I'd like Emma Palmer. Emma, come out here a minute. Say hello. Emma did a great job. She did a great, great job. And although she works for me in Washington, she's a Princeton girl. We call her the Princeton princess, but okay, questions, if anyone has any, on the press. If not, I think, yes.
Do you have a sense of the amount of the appropriation you're seeking? I know you don't.
Yes, we are seeking from the appropriators $3 million to begin with the community grants, which is our foundation money. Other elements of the law will be funded already by the Department of Health and Human Services. One is the National Advocacy Campaign. That is part of the mission. It is a mandate under the law for the Department of Health and Human Services, so we'll be sitting with Secretary Sebelius to see how she's going to kick that off, and also the research instruction to the National Institutes of Health to seek to find the foundation for postpartum depression is a mandate as well. And so those elements are actually will move forward. And the final part, the community grants, where we're going to seek the $3 million appropriation, we hope to get it appropriated this year. Anyone else? If not, thank you very much for joining us today. Appreciate it.